Hello, and welcome to another episode of Game Develop Repeat, the podcast where we talk about a game that I enjoy, what makes it special, and what we as game developers can learn from it. I'm your host, Chris, a music educator turned indie game developer, and today's episode is all about Forager. In this episode, we discuss pacing, addictive gameplay, color palettes, rewarding your players, and level design. Let's get to it. The best way that I can explain Forager to you is by comparing it to a slot machine. And I don't have any experience with slot machines, but let me explain why I'm using this analogy. While I was playing the game, I had this voice in the back of my head that popped up, and it went, "This must be what it feels like to be addicted to slot machines. This has to be what it feels like to be stuck at a casino, unable to peel yourself away from all the flashing lights and cool rewards that you might be getting." Um, and I could not like I could not understand how much of a physical feeling I was getting from playing this game. More than any game that I have ever played, Forager caused me to have a physical reaction of like thrill and excitement. Actually, I guess Spiritfarer caused me to have a physical reaction, but that was like a very different, that was just like a strong emotional physical reaction. Forager gave me an extreme like a hook. It was like I took too much caffeine. It was like I couldn't peel myself from the screen. It was such a strong in that moment hook for that game. And then I basically just played that game until I beat it to my satisfaction. I was like, it's a good thing that this game has an ending because I need to just rip through it and be done with it. And once I beat the game, it was fine and I did not return. And I probably won't return because as good of a game as it was, for me, it doesn't have much of a replay value, and I'm not that compelled by I don't think it can give me that feeling a second time. And if it can, I don't want to find that out. Uh, it was great though. It was really enjoyable while it lasted. And I don't say this to put you off the game. I say this to give you an idea or to even to turn you onto the game because depending on your personality, that's going to lean you one way or the other, right? But the reason I say all of this is to explain to you why this game has even made the show, why it is that I love this game. And it is because it did something that no other game has ever done. And I had a lot of fun while I was playing it. I've played games that are like addictive. I'll get to what the gameplay loop actually is in a second here, but I'm just going to finish this idea first. I've played games that are addictive, but I haven't played games that have that much intensity to the addictive quality of them. I've played Tales of Magiel. I'll just get stuck playing Tales of Magiel and I can't stop starting a new run. But that's just a moment in the run where I go, I'll just start a new run. It's like playing Civilization 4 and just like, oh, whoops, it's 2 a.m. I played a lot of games like that where you lose track of time. I haven't played a game where you are keenly aware of how compelling the game is in that moment. And one analogy for it is that every moment of the game felt like a level up in an MMO. Like there was that much celebration and brightness and color going on, and it's got this really highly saturated color palette. It's very cheerful and very intense, but it's got a little sense of humor in there. It's wild. All right, let's talk about what the game actually is for a second. Honestly, the main thing I remember is the emotional reaction to the game, but the game is sort of it is a game where you are unlocking territories and exploiting those territories so that you can continue growing and unlocking more little areas and exploiting those and exploring all these little regions. It's kind of like there's a little bit of a like a crafting game thing to it, like almost like a Stardew kind of a thing. You're like building. It's like a Factorio almost. There's this weird mix going on where I should add Factorio to the list of games to cover. Um, there's this weird mix going on of like crafting, a little bit of combat, a little bit of this like idle production thing. So you're constantly optimizing. Basically, everything in this game is you optimizing to get more stuff and unlock more things, and you're like picking up stuff constantly so that you can put it somewhere else so that you can speed it up. And it's just like this endless kind of oddly stressful loop, because it's all kind of you're for me, I was so compelled by trying to optimize things as much as possible, and the timers were lined up in like just the right way to have me constantly running around. And I can't just like slow down and pause when there's that many queues going on all over the place. I was like, I have to get all of these things as fast as I can, and I have to keep going and going and going. Checklists are a big thing for me. You get the satisfaction of checking something off of a list. I don't use them a ton, but when I do use them, they're very satisfying. This game is like this like never ending like visual checklist. Like everything is directly in front of you all the time. There's just shiny objects everywhere that you want to pick up or go interact with or what have you, so that you can move forward and upgrade the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it's not like an RPG where it takes forever to get like a level up or to upgrade something or whatever, right? It's not something where you're grinding for 2 hours. It's not something where you're grinding for 4 days. It's not like MMO style, right? No, it is like constant bright colors, unlocks, things to explore, pick up more money, all of this. And it is so intense. The pace of this game is on par with the quickest paced games I've ever played. There's an old comic. This is going to be a really deep dive reference. And I'm interested to know if any of you know the comic that I'm talking about. There's an old 8-bit theater comic. If you even know what that is, then you're in the right place. You've found your people, because I loved that when I was growing up. There's this old 8-bit theater comic where I think it's like I forget which character, but one of the characters is like playing Warcraft 3, and one of the other characters is like, somehow they end up saying like, how long has it been? And they're like, oh, it's been 5 minutes. And they're like, 5 minutes? And they freak out about all the different things that have happened in 5 minutes, because Warcraft 3 is a game that you play second to second. Actually, the joke may have even been that it's been 5 seconds, because 5 seconds in Warcraft 3, you are behind. You are so behind. After 5 seconds of doing nothing at the very beginning of the game, you're doomed. But you only learn that once you've really picked up on the game and started playing online, and like seen how quickly you can get annihilated if you don't act fast, right? This is a game that has that level of pacing. Like those first 5 seconds of Warcraft 3, this game has a level of pacing that feels like that all the time, but it's just coming from internal state and all the cues in the game, these relentless cues, just cue after cue after cue of like, pay attention to this, how cool is this? It's also kind of like Cook Serve Delicious in that it is like a non-stop go, 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 except I felt like I have more breaks, more time to breathe when I'm playing Cook Serve Delicious than I do when I'm playing Forager. And it actually kind of like burned me out. And maybe this is a personality thing. Like maybe some of you are listening to this and you're going, I've played Forager and it had none of this effect on me. It was just totally chill. I just played it at my own pace, whatever. But I doubt it. But if you are that person, let me know so that I can like know to never ever go to Vegas or any kind of slot machine, because this game made me scared of slot machines. I was like, if this is what those are like, I need to just never use one, because I always look at footage of people on slot machines. I'm like, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? This doesn't make any sense. And then I played this game and it was like, oh, I think maybe this is why they're doing that. I think it might just be all of these like bright lights and colors and stuff clicking something in their brain and just making them love it. But then again, I've seen like footage of a slot machine stream and I'm like, this makes no sense at all to me. So maybe it's not the same deal. Um, okay, hold on. Even talking about this game, I'm like going really fast paced and getting really hyped just because I'm like feeling the mood of the game while I talk through it. That is one of my favorite things. Just a little tangent. Not that I ever go on tangents in this show. Um, One of my favorite things about doing this show is I get to relive the games while I'm talking about them. Like I'll start an episode and I won't really know exactly where I'm going to go with it. I do like a whole outline now. It's getting more and more structured, but it's still a very like loose outline, and I get to relive all of the feelings that I felt while playing that game without having to spend like 20 hours replaying the game. So that's really nice. There are a couple games that I'm saving for after I replay them because I really want to do them justice. Like Jade Cocoon, I'm probably going to play at least like an hour of that before I, honestly, probably 2 hours because it takes a while to get into the real good stuff before I cover that one. But I will get around to it one day. I love that one. All right, there's my tangent, and then the tangent on top of my tangent. Um, One thing about this, so we've talked about the pacing, and we've talked about how like it's kind of high stress because of how fast paced it is, even though there's really nothing in the game stressing you. It's really like a masterclass in how you can stress yourself out with your own mind state. Like there's just all these visual cues, and yeah, sure, you don't need to do all of this stuff. You don't need to go this quickly. You don't need to do any of this. It's a game. It's fine. And if you go slow in this game, the only thing it does is slows things down. But everything is screaming for your attention incessantly in like a cheerful, playful way, and you're like, "Well, I have to keep going." So it really shows you how much, just like how much you can be affected, excuse me, by an environment. Like how much an environment can just like suck you in and change your mental state. Obviously, this is taken to a very, very far extreme of like environmental stimulation. You're staring at that screen and you're like in this world of color and light and like satisfying sounds and all this stuff. The color of this game, I think, is interesting to me, especially because I've been working on art a lot more right now, and I've been creating this like very kind of desaturated color palette for parts of my game. It's this whole thing where I'm trying to make the background and the foreground look separate, even though it's like a 2D game. Um, and part of that is the color balance, and I'm looking at this game, right, and like in my mind I'm visualizing it, and it's very bright. It's like very saturated, and it's got very like cute design, and I think that is a very large part of what is making it so powerful. um let's actually, now I'm about to start asking questions about what makes it so powerful. So let's move on to the next section, the develop section. So the first question I have written down is, how does this game hook me so hard? And it's interesting. I want to just compare it to other games a little bit, because I think the first thing that pops into mind is kind of everything I've already talked about, right? It's the colors, it's the lights, it's the compelling unlocking loop, this loop of unlocking one after another. Like it's just this endless unlocking. But let's compare it to something. Let's compare it to like a Souls-like game for a second, right? Any game that is especially difficult and compelling for that reason. Because a game like Dark Souls or Elden Ring, let's use Elden Ring because of the Souls games, that's the one I played the most of. It really pulls you in by challenging you. It gives you something that it's like, and by being beautiful. Oh my God, Elden Ring is beautiful. But it pulls you in by challenging you and saying, you have got to contend with this challenge. Look at how pathetic you are. Don't you want to not be pathetic? In contrast, I think one of the messages that Forager sends you is everything is yours to take over should you simply take the time to do so. And it's not even going to take that long. Look at how good you're getting. Every moment you get better and better and better and better and better. It's Elden Ring says you're going to have to work really hard to master this, but when you master it, it is going to feel so satisfying. Forager says every single step you take is a step towards victory, and it's a huge satisfying step towards victory. Like, it rewards you for every single step. You don't actually really develop any skill. You just kind of learn some stuff and like make progress in the game, right? But I do like this as a metaphor. Like, just really quickly, imagine that every step you take is actually that big of a victory. I think this is one of the reasons why people like celebrate your victories, right? Especially in game development. Oh my God. Like, we have long development cycles. I'm creating a rather small game and it's taking me like a year. Partially because I'm learning things in the process. But like, the dev time on games is forever, so we got to celebrate victories. And these people who are like celebrate every single little victory, every step forward is a victory worth celebrating. I think they're onto something in the same way that Forager is onto something. Like, if everything is a victory, you get hooked on that process. It's the same thing with, I'm going on tangents today, we're just going to accept it. It's the same thing with weightlifting. People get really hooked on weightlifting, and one of the reasons that you do is because you can see the results very quickly, like temporary results. This is a theory I've heard, and it fits for me a little bit. You see the results in the mirror as you were lifting and right after you're lifting, and then they go away. So then you want them back. So then you go lift again, and you kind of see what you're going to look like in however many months, for just a moment, because all of your muscles are like swollen because of all the blood going to them while you're lifting. Anyway, back to the specifics of this game. I think that wow, that I went pretty far on that tangent. I think the idea behind this game, like, the deeper concept is that every step you take is a victory. And so being rewarded for every single tiny victory is very satisfying, right? But it's also a little overwhelming. And I think that is one of the things, is like, it is a lot all at once. But yeah, it can really pull you in. Would this game have the same impact? I actually, this feels like a really simple question, but I love this. Would it have the same impact with a less intense color palette? If you took this game and you just pulled all the colors towards gray, if you just desaturated the whole thing and just everything is super, super bright, it's like a crayon drawing, it's like so intense. If you just pulled everything into the gray area, would it have the same impact? Would it still be as compelling? I don't know. You know what? There's a way to test this. I mean, I can't test it really because I've already played it before, so like that's kind of, that messes with the control, like that messes with the validity of me testing it. But you could just mess with your monitor settings or mess with the color settings or whatever and try this out. But I do wonder, if you pull back the saturation, if you make it really like closer to gray, and I hope I'm using the right terms. I just learned some of this stuff like this past week and a half. So like, apologies, art people, if I'm totally mangling this, please let me know so I can stop saying embarrassing things. But I think I have it right. I don't think it would have the same impact. I think there's like, I think the emotional impact that color has on us is much more significant than we realize. This is one of the reasons why the John Wick movies are so compelling. I've watched like an analysis on this, and I think I agree now that I've watched a few of them. The moments in a John Wick movie that I found most interesting were the ones that had just fascinating color palettes. Like, they've got all these elaborate fight scenes and choreography, and like they've got the occasional like witty dialogue moment and all this stuff, but there are moments where the scene is so beautiful just color wise and so compelling color wise that like you can't help but kind of like it, and be sucked in by the colors going on. I think it also, oh no, what is the name of that director, the guy who made Grand Budapest Hotel? It's slipping my mind right now, but he's a very popular director with a very specific style of shooting his films, and there's always like this interesting color scheme, and I think that has a major impact. And I think color scheme is really important in games, And I don't think it's something I've thought about that much before. I think I've only started thinking about it while working on this art, and I thought of it like briefly on a couple different game releases where people were complaining about the color palette, and then I would be like, oh, I guess it is kind of different, but I didn't pay that much attention to it. These days, I pay a lot more attention to color just by the nature of some day job related stuff. I work with color a little bit in like a very weird way, but we won't get into that. The the nature of color in games is exciting for me now. I'm like, how much of an impact does this have? What can I do with this? How relaxed or stressed out can a color make somebody feel? If you play the game, I think it's called Lisa, that one has a pretty impactful color palette as well. That is a wild game. I did not get through that game, but what I did play was pretty wild. That's a weird little RPG. I think it's pretty much an RPG. It's like a 2D side scrolly thing, so I keep thinking there might be a platforming element, but there's not. Yeah, I barely played that game. I got to play more of that one actually because it's really interesting. But the color palette on that one is good too. For the mood it's setting. Man, I am in tangent mode today, huh? We're going to keep going with it though. So I don't think it would have the same impact. I think the game would feel pretty different with a different color palette. Next question that I have, is it possible to feel relaxed while playing this game? If you've played this game and it does not stress you out, please let me know. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible to play this game and have a chill time. Like, I don't think it's possible to feel like the feeling that you get from chilling at the top of a mountain in Breath of the Wild or in Tears of the Kingdom. I don't think it's possible to get the feeling that you get when you're just like relaxing in some beautiful game. When you're playing East Shade, for instance, I don't think that's possible. I don't think it can happen. I think if you're playing this game, it is going to either make you stop playing or it's going to pull you into this excitement feeling. Like if you're not going to lean in with all the thrill and like feel the emotions that it is throwing at you, you're going to be like, this game is just not for me. I don't think that somebody is going to play this game and enjoy it while really just chilling out the whole time. I think it pushes you forward too aggressively. There's too much forward momentum just inherently just embedded through the entire game. And I would love to do even more analysis of this thing at some point because I would love to look at individual chunks of this game and just tear apart every single thing that it's doing to press a button in your brain. Like I would love to be like, oh, this sound combined with this visual, combined with this color selection, combined with this level up progression, like all of these things are pushing in the same direction. And I bet that there's a lot that I'm not understanding in here that is probably really, really interesting. Somebody could probably do a friggin' doctoral thesis on the psychology of this game. That is how strongly I feel about this. I could be wrong, but that is how strongly I feel about this. I don't think it's possible to feel relaxed while playing it unless if you've played it so much that it just like is numb now, right? But on a first playthrough, definitely not. God, I hope I'm wrong because it's gonna be really funny if somebody messaged me and is like, "Hey, this game is not at all like that. You just have a very weird, very specific reaction to this game." That would be surprising to me though. Last question before we move on: how much stimulation is too much? And this is more a question for my own projects. I think that that's going to vary for everybody. I think this game is fantastic. I don't think it's doing too much. I just think it's too much for me to digest. And I am glad that I played it the one time that I did. For me, how much is too much in my own project? So the game I'm making right now is pretty chill as far as like that. right? Like it's kind of cute. The vibe of the game I'm making right now is cute, but it's not like addictive in that way. I think it's more of like a classical, like it's a platformer, so there are things in it that make you go, "Ooh, I really want to beat that," or it makes you go, "Oh, I really want to like explore over here or whatever," right? Like that's like the overall concept is like, "Oh, I'm going to explore everything. I'm going to pick things up. I'm going to navigate the platforms," right? But in the future, how much stimulation is too much? How much is, if I make like a much more bright, colorful game, which I kind of want to do at some point. I do tend to go more mellow on things. I do think for the moment I'm probably gonna do like a little bit more. Actually, maybe my next project should be like more colorful and cartoony because then I'll get a better understanding of color. Um, but then if I think for me, if it's so stimulating that you can't have a moment to think about what's going on, for me that's too much for sure. I think I want to be able to embed some story, and I want to be able to embed things where I want you to be able to walk away from the game and think about what was going on, think about what happened, think about everything in the game, and not just feel. I don't want players to walk away feeling jittery necessarily. Maybe I do though. Maybe I'll make a game like that at some point. But I think at the moment, most of what I want to do is more like, it's not that I want to make strategic experiences, it's that I want to make experiences that you can digest a little bit. I like games that need a little bit of digestion, right? And that can mean something as light as like a Pokemon where you're like, "Oh, I kind of want to think about what abilities I want to use," right? You're not like digesting a really heavy story really, but it's like it's a game that you can think about while you're not playing it on a deeper level than just I want to play that game, I want to play that game. You can start thinking about like, oh, how am I gonna like I wonder what's going on with this part of the world. I wonder what the next gym leader is. Like I want a little bit of mystery. I guess this game does that, but what really makes it too much? I think it's the moment to moment feel of the game. I think it's the game feel. I think I just, if this game is cranked to 11, I want to be at a maximum of like an 8 as far as like pure stimulation, like pure like addictive drive. I don't think I want to go higher than that. I mean, I can't set a hard rule for it now. I have no idea. Right now I'm working on a platformer. That's not like a hard addictive drive game, right? I mean, I guess you could make it that way depending. But it's not like something where you get constant level up rewards and all these things and unlocks and all that stuff. Like maybe some Metroidvanias, but even then it's more like exploration focused. Anyway, that's how I feel about that. That's my thought. Now we're going to talk about my own development this week. If you don't already know, the demo is out. There's a link at the bottom of this episode. The game has already changed dramatically from the demo. The visual style is totally different. I've changed some like hitbox or what do you, I've changed some colliders, not hitboxes. I've changed some colliders so the player feels a little bit different. I've changed the speed of like the launch ability and the jumping, and I'm redoing like all the levels. But anyway, the demo's out if you want to play around with it and see a little bit of what I'm talking about. Stuff I did this week: level design. Level design, I don't know why I thought this, but somewhere in the back of my head, and if any of you are level designers, you're gonna be like, "Oh, this guy." Somewhere in the back of my head, I thought level design was gonna be easy. I don't know why. I don't know what inspired me to believe that level design was going to be like the easy, quick part of this process. And like, I'm barely even going to have to think about it. I've played so many games. I have all the levels in my head already. No problem. I've played a million games. I can just do this and boom, done, whatever. Pound it out real quick. I thought it would be like, oh, it's just like takes some time, but it's not that hard. Level design is exhausting. It's so mentally taxing. Like maybe it's because I don't have a ton of mechanics and I'm trying to milk them for everything they're worth, and I'm like exploring them and all this stuff. But like, wow, dude, level design has you're kind of trying to read the minds of potential players, and you're changing your mindset constantly, and you're going through all the possible ways that the level could be played through, and you're figuring out every creative way that you can use like a couple mechanics in combination, and there's an overwhelming number of possibilities, and it's you have to figure out ways to kind of lock down your creativity and simultaneously like push it outwards. It's really weird how tiring it was. Like the first day that I really went in on level design post demo, the first time that I went, okay, we need to design these levels and they need to all have a distinct purpose and they need to really drive the game forward. Like every level needs to feel like it's there for a reason. There can't just be a level where you walk straight, hit an enemy, walk straight, hit it. You know what I mean? I feel like I just like low key insulted a few different games, but I didn't mean to. Luckily I wasn't very specific at all. But we've all played those games, right? Look, it's a lot. It is a very thought intensive part of the process. And the first time that I did it, the first time I really dove into it, I finished and then I was like physically exhausted. Like my brain felt tired in the way that your brain feels tired after like a huge exam or like you study all night or whatever. Like it felt not all night, but it felt tired in the way where you're just like, I cannot do more thinking right now. This was too much. And I didn't even feel like I was doing a lot of thinking. You know what it was? It felt like when I was in high school and I was learning calculus and I just finished this massive, like 2 hour long problem set for calculus. And then I walked away and I was like, whoa, what happened to my ability to think? I just need to like lay down. This was too much. That's how it felt. And I kind of loved it. Like, I'm still getting used to doing it, but if I'm honest with myself, I'm loving doing the level design, and I was just thrown off by how difficult it was, but I am enjoying it. I had a few more art workflow changes. I I have found out over and over. I keep finding this out. Asebright has a lot of really nice hotkeys that will open up these little sub menus that will let you do things in like 5 seconds that you thought were going to take you like 30 minutes. And I've learned to look for these things. So it's like, instead of wasting 20 minutes doing this thing very slowly and manually, I'm just going to look up whether or not there's a way to shift the hue of the entire picture all at once. And there is. By the way, it's Control U. That will let you adjust all the hue, the saturation, whatever. It'll let you adjust everything simultaneously. So if you're just thinking, oh, everything's a little too dark or a little too bright, you can just go in there and pull it back. No problem. That's great. And I think that's probably the case for like every one of these art programs. I think there's probably just a ton of workflows that are really handy. And if you just find out about them, they'll save you so much time. And I love saving time. It's great. When you have this much stuff to do, you got to save time. So that's marvelous. And then the other thing, this is kind of a weird pivot, but there's this thing called OSSU, OSSU. I'm not talking about OSU, which is, I think that's a mouse clicking game that's like kind of DDR based. I'm talking about OSSU. It is like open source something university. Basically what they do is they put together courses. They like create lists of courses that are set up to fulfill like the requirements for a specific field's like bachelor's degree. There's no accreditation or anything, but it's like a way to collect all the knowledge, and it's a course that you can go through for free. for specific fields. So there's a computer science one, I think there's like a data science. There's a bunch of these. They're all like science related or like technology related, I should say. I think there's like 6 of them. It's on GitHub. Um, but you you can find this, and you can find like it's basically like 2 years of full-time work to get through one of these things, apparently. But I found this because I want to learn some computer science stuff, because boy oh boy, that seems like it's going to be helpful down the road. I started taking one, just like a very basic like Python thing. And it is great. I haven't gotten through the most basic course, and I found myself thinking in like a more structured way for some reason. And I don't think I even learned that much from the course so far. Like I've not even scratched the surface. But when I went back into my code, I was like, oh, things are like a little easier right now. Maybe I'm thinking about this differently. Maybe I picked up a few things. Alternatively, maybe I've taken a break from coding and I had a vacation, and now my brain is like willing to look at my old code and go, oh, well, we know how to fix that. But I do think the course, if it's not already helping, is going to help down the road. So I'm going to very slowly work through that. Initially, I was really ambitious. And then I've had this realization of, yeah, I'm doing too much right now. There's no way that I can also finish this course in 2 years. Like, what? That would be wild. That would be a lot. I'm still gonna kind of keep chipping away at it slowly, though. You know, like I'm not gonna just ignore that stuff. I'm excited about it. Last thing, I'm gonna mention this. I feel like it's important to have a goal for the release of my game. I mean, I have a date, right? That I intend to release it by. I want to release it before a full year is up from the day that I started development. So that puts me in October. I think in a previous episode, I had been like, I want to release in like March. And that was insane. I don't know. I think I even said in the episode, like, I'm going to regret that. Well, you know what? Yeah, you were wrong. You were not releasing that early. Or maybe it said June or something. I don't know. But the point is, October. That's the aim. And here's what I'm shooting for. God, I hope that actually works out. Here's what I'm shooting for. I want, as far as like a metric, the sole goal that I have for this game is to release it and to get 3 Steam reviews from people who I do not know and have not interacted with. I think that is a totally possible goal, and I'm intentionally setting something that feels very possible but might be surprisingly difficult, because it can be really difficult to get somebody to leave a review on something, right? So my goal is 3 reviews from people who I have not like interacted with, right? And I'm excited about that. Maybe that'll pan out. Maybe it won't, and it doesn't have to be positive reviews. It's positive or negative. If I get 3 reviews on this project, I'm going to be hyped. I'm going to be like, whoa, 3 strangers played this game that I made. That's awesome, right? Let's go ahead and get to this week's tip. There is a new part of this section of the show, and it is questions for your own projects, which will then be followed by this week's tip. Questions for your projects based on the game that we analyzed today. 1, how stressful do you want your game to be? 2, where will the stress come from? Is it from the pacing, the challenge level, etc.? How do you reward your players? How often do you want to reward your players? What psychological effect does your color palette have on the player? And then lastly, is your game fun, addictive, neither, or both? And which one do you want? Let me know how you feel about that chunk. I think I'm going to start trying to do that in future episodes to give like a much more actionable little chunk of game development stuff. I just want there to be a chunk of this show where you go, oh, boom, there it is. These are takeaways. This is what I can use. I can leave this episode and ask myself these questions and potentially make my game even better. Now, here is the tip I have for this week, and that is to choose when to follow your compulsions. I think I think this is relevant to game development because it's really easy to get sucked down a rabbit hole of programming and just like sit there and program and then be like, oh, I'm really hungry. And then you keep programming and you're like, oh, wow, I really need to, like, my legs are really getting stiff. And then you keep programming. I think it's important to not push through that kind of thing unless it's worth it for you in that moment, unless it's something where you're getting quality workout. Like, and I understand because boy, do I just get locked in sometimes. But yeah, choosing when you follow the compulsions, I think is really valuable. So saying, hey, I'm not actually getting a lot of value out of getting locked in right now. I need to step away. Or saying, oh, I would get a ton of value out of working on art right now because I'm feeling this urge to work on art, or I'm feeling compelled to work on music. I had that happen today. I just finished dinner and then I was suddenly like, oh, wait, I have a song idea. I have to work on this because this is going to go in the game. Like, I can't lose this idea. So then I just like popped it into my head, started humming it, and then went down and went to my piano on my computer and like played it out. MIDI keyboard, I should say. So like follow those compulsions at the appropriate time, I guess. Like know when a compulsion is like a little bit, it's how do I phrase this? Know when a compulsion is driven by you being stubborn. And here's the best analogy. You're playing Elden Ring, you're fighting that boss, you keep fighting that boss, you're fighting that boss over and over and over, and you're just redoing it over and over because you want to win, not because you're doing good takes, not because you're having a good time fighting it, but just because you're stubborn and you want to break through that barrier. That is not when you create good code. When you're stubborn and you want to break through that barrier, that's when you step away for 10 minutes and then you come back and you do create good code, or you sleep on it and you come back and you do create good code. Sometimes you have to break through the barrier. But if you're sitting there for hours, probably you need a different angle of approach, right? That's kind of what I mean when I say to choose when to follow your compulsions. That is everything that I've got for you this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I am looking forward to recording another one for you next week. I wish I could cover the new Final Fantasy game, but I don't have a PS5, so hopefully the PC port comes out. That would be great. And also, I wouldn't be able to cover it this quickly anyway, because I can't get far enough in that game to assess it in like 3 days. But maybe one day I'll get to cover that one in like 2-3 years. That's everything. Have a good week. Make some stuff. Have fun with it. And I will talk to you all in the next episode. See ya.